Hi friends, welcome back to another video. So today I decided to do a bookshelf tour. So you're gonna get an overview of my two bookcases. I have one bookcase that has 6 shelves on it, which is behind me. And then I have another bookcase in the other room, which has 3 shelves on it, along with my TBR pile, which is 2 stacks of books, actually 3 stacks of books in my nightstand, which are books that I want to get to soon. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It is a bit of a long one, but if you're interested, I will try to divide it up into chapters so you can see certain sections. You don't have to watch the whole video if you don't want to. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy it. And this gives you just a little bit of an overview of the kinds of books that I have. And if you have any of these books, if you want to share anything about any of these books, I'd absolutely love to hear it. But these are my current books, and I have about 200 or so. I think I have like 250, but 200 unread on my shelves. And I really need to get cracking on my physical TBR, but these are some of the books that I have. All right, so I'm starting with my main bookcase, which has 6 shelves. And I'm just doing a brief overview first, just to show you each of the shelves and what they look like. This one is organized by color, as you can see, with the bottom shelf just being all of my classics. So that doesn't really fit the color coordination vibes, but I wanted all my special edition classics to be together. I'm starting with my bottom shelf and then I will work my way up, but this is the overview of the shelf a little bit closer, and I'll go through each of the titles. So on top I have some extra classics that were part of this section but just aren't special editions. I kind of want to find a better place to put them, but for now they just hang out up here. So the first book that I have is The Metropolitan Opera Murders by Helen Traubel. Then I have this vintage edition of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Next I have this vintage Penguin Classics edition of Lady Susan, the Watsons, and Sanditon all collected together by Jane Austen. This is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. This is also like a vintage edition of this book. It is a classic that I found at a secondhand used bookstore. Then we have The Dead Letter by Seeley Register, and this is a bunch of crime classics, I think. So it's a lot of crime in here and stuff. And I haven't read any of the classics in this, but I wanted to put it down here because it seemed to fit. And then we have this massive tome of Les Miserables, which is a Barnes & Noble edition of this book. It is absolutely huge. It's got these gold edges at the top, as you can see, and on the sides. It's a little hard to see on the camera, but they are like golden. There you go. And I have not read this, but I do plan on reading this. I've seen a few of the adaptations. So I've seen the movie, I've seen the musical, and I've seen the PBS TV series they made on this. And it's just such a big book that I don't know when I'll get around to it, but it is one I definitely want to read. And it's the first book on this shelf of my special editions. Next, we have a bind-up of the complete novels of Jane Austen, and I believe I got this on a website called Abe Books, so ABE Books, and it's absolutely stunning. I love the flowers. I love just how it looks, and I've read Pride and Prejudice from this edition and Mansfield Park, but my plan is to eventually read all of them. I'm slowly working my way through. I think a couple of years ago I read Pride and Prejudice, and in 2024 I read Mansfield Park, so hoping to get to another one of Jane Austen's works soon. All right, so next we have this Classics edition bind up from Barnes & Noble as well, and it's classic works from women writers. I just love the cover. I love some of the writers in here. I think it contains some works from Virginia Woolf and other well-known women writers, or lesser known women writers. And oh, see here it says all of the authors in here. There's Agatha Christie, George Eliot, who is Marianne Evans, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, Elizabeth Gaskell. There's a bunch of authors in here, including Jane Austen too. But I absolutely love this bind up, so I had to have it, and especially because I feel like there's so many classics by women that are so underrated and so often just ignored in favor of other classics written by men. So the next book I have is Jane Eyre, which is this fancy Barnes & Noble edition of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I love this edition. I love the candelabras and all of the beautiful designs on it, and I love the quote on the back. It is beautiful, and it says, "It is vain to say human beings ought to be satisfied with tranquility. They must have action, and they will make it if they cannot find it." So I love that quote. I love this edition, And I also haven't read Jane Eyre. I haven't read most of these classics down here, but I do plan to. And I have seen several of the adaptations of this book, so I can't wait to dive in. And sticking with the Bronte sisters, I now have a copy of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is also a Barnes & Noble classic edition. I really like these leather-bound editions that they've been printing. I think they're absolutely stunning. And the back says, "Be with me always, take any form, drive me mad, only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you." So it's beautiful. I love the purple sprayed edges. I think that's such a beautiful color to use, and I love the purple and green together. I can't wait to read this. I've heard a lot of really good things about this, and I'm super excited, but this is what this edition looks like. So the next book that I have is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is another Barnes & Noble classic. I see a pattern here, and this has also got the purple cover but green sprayed edges instead of the reverse, which is what Wuthering Heights had. And I've heard a lot of things about Dorian Gray. I know a lot of people really like this classic. It's a popular one, so I can't wait to dive into this. I know it's about a man who becomes very enamored of his reflection and himself and some of the vanity and the issues he faces because of his personal narcissism. Next, I have this special edition of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have actually read this. I read it around Halloween time. Not this last year, but maybe in 2023 or 2022. So it's been a year or two, but I absolutely love the story, so I needed a special edition of it. And look at this edition, it's so stunning. And on the back it says, "You are my creator, but I am your master, obey." And it is about this Dr. Frankenstein who makes this being who is this like creature and brings him to life. And I really love this book. It is amazing. I want to get more into like gothic horrors and things like that. And I just think Mary Shelley is the queen of that. I love this book. I can't say enough good things about it. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend it. So moving on to this collection right here, I have these Puffin and Bloom classic editions. So I have first Little Women, Heidi by Joanna Spry, Anne of Green Gables, which I have actually read and I really enjoyed the story. I'm glad that I have a special edition of this book. And we have A Little Princess as well by Frances Hodgson Burnett. So these are beautiful editions. I love the foiling on these books. I love the covers too. They're absolutely stunning. And I love just how well they fit together. I think I got them in a box set together, but I just love how good they look together. And I wanted to keep them on the shelf here with my other special edition classics. So moving right along with the shelf, these aren't actually classics, but they are on this shelf because I don't really have anywhere else to put them, and I don't have enough classics to fill up a whole shelf. So these Outlander books, the box sets of 8 ended up on this shelf, and Go Tell the Bees I'm Gone is on another shelf that I have that is color-coded. But the first 8 just fit right here neatly, and I don't have Written in My Own Heart's Blood on this shelf right now because I'm currently reading it. I'm almost done with it. I'm like 75% of the way through, but once I finish it, I'll add it back to all these other books down here. And I am doing reviews for each of these books. So I have done a review for Outlander and it's on my channel if you haven't seen it yet. I have also filmed one for Dragonfly and Amber, which if it hasn't come out yet, will be coming out soon. And I will be doing one for each of the other books shortly. So of course, the first book is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. And all of these editions down here are mass market paperback. My edition of Go Tell the Bees I'm Gone is the hardcover because I wanted it as soon as it was released. Then here we have Dragonfly and Amber, the second book. This is Voyager, book 3. And here we have Drums of Autumn, book 4. And from this point on in the series, I decided to start annotating and tabbing the books. So there's not a lot of written annotations in there, but I do have a lot of tabs, as you'll see from this edition on, that they have a lot of tabs in there because there are a lot of little moments that I wanted to mark to go back to. And then we have The Fiery Cross, which I will say up to this point, it is my least favorite book in the series. I think that's a pretty common feeling for people who have read all of the books, but it's just not something that I really vibe with. I had hoped that I would like it more, but it is just too meandering, too long. And if it's not the longest book in the series, it's definitely the second longest. It's one of the longest tomes in here. And I felt like some of it was just really unnecessary. But moving right along, we have A Breath of Snow and Ashes. And this cover is very reflective, as you can see. You can kind of see everything with this cover. But it is the 6th book in the series, and this is one of my favorites. I did talk a little bit more about it in my favorites of 2024 video. But I will also be doing, like I said, dedicated reviews for all of these. And then the last book on this shelf, of course, is An Echo in the Bone, which is book 7. This book I finished reading in January, and I'm currently finishing Written in My Own Heart's Blood this month, with the goal of finishing the 9th book, Go Tell the Bees I'm Gone, at some point in March, hopefully. Alright, so I'll do the one final overview, but that is the end of that shelf. Moving on up to the next shelf, this is where the color coding of the shelves starts. And we have a lot of black books on the shelf, with some brown ones too, and a little bit of purple at this end. So I will start from the purple end and move over to the black. But this shelf is not the prettiest I have, and I know that you never really see this in my videos, but I did want to have a section for black books because the shelf would have just felt incomplete otherwise. And there are a lot of like interesting things on these spines, so I did want to display them. The first book on the shelf is actually a mystery book. It's called The Enemy You Gnocchi, which I think is super cute. It is an Italian chef mystery, it says. And this one I did do some sprayed edge work on it. So I have done some sprayed edges on some of my books that I felt like I wanted to, and this was one of the ones where I was testing it out, so it didn't turn out the best. But I have not read this yet. I do want to read it soon because it is a mystery novel and I'm trying to get more into that genre. But this is the first book on the shelf. Then we have The Witch King by H.E. Edgman on this shelf. And this is what it looks like. This is an advanced reader copy that I got, I think, in a giveaway a couple of years ago. Then we have Faith, Greater Heights by Julie Murphy, and I think this is the second book in this series. I love that it has a plus-size heroine, and I can't wait to dive into these books. I love the purple. I feel like there's just not a lot of books out there that are all purple like this, and I can't wait to dive in. That's it for the purple books on the shelf. We will continue up onto the next shelf, but the first brown book that I have here is List of 10 by Hallie Gomez. Then I have this mass market paperback edition of The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. And if you didn't know, this is part of the Mistborn trilogy. They're not all together on this shelf, but this book I put here because it is like a brown cover. Then I have this copy of Blood and Treasure, Daniel Boone and the Fight for America's First Frontier by Bob Drury and Tom Clavin. And this is an advanced reader's copy that was sent to me. I don't really know what it's about, but I do plan on reading it soon. I've had it for a while and I should get to it. But this book is also here because of the coloring. And I think it is a little bit about Western America, but I don't know too much more beyond that. Then I have A Glimmer of Death, which I believe is a mystery horror novel. I don't really know a lot about this book either, but this is another one that I want to try out to get more into like the thriller mystery genres. Then I have this copy of Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy A. Snyder, and this is an advanced reader copy. This book is Dark Horse by Kel Carpenter and Aurelia Jane, and this book is the first book in a Demon's Guide to the Afterlife series. This book I got in the Supernatural book crates when I used to be a rep for them, so that's where this book came from, and this is what it looks like. I'm interested to learn more about this book and to get into it. It's just one that I haven't gotten to around yet. I have kind of in the past collected some of my physical books, so a goal for 2025 is to read more of my physical TBR and stop avoiding these books. Then we have a new addition to my shelves, which I recently got. It is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, and this is from Book of the Month. I absolutely love Kristen Hanna's writing in The Four Winds, and I do have another book by her which is on my TBR shelf, and it's one of my next reads. It is Firefly Lane. But I was super excited to get a copy of this because I just love her writing, I love her historical fictions, and I can't wait to dive into all of her backlisted stories. So next I have my collector's first editions of The Infernal Devices. So this is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, and I don't want to go into this too much because it did talk about it in one of my all-time favorites video, but I love this trilogy so much. I love this series. I love this world. And I was super happy to get my hands on this. I got this secondhand, I think, off of eBay or something like that because I didn't own any of the books and I really wanted them because they are some of my favorites. Then we have Clockwork Prince, which as you can see is the collector's first edition. I don't know if Clockwork Angel actually is, but the last two for sure are the first editions. And I love just the extra content in these. And I love this trilogy. And finally, we have Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is also a collector's first edition, and it is the third book in this trilogy. I cannot recommend these books enough. I love them. And then I have this hardcover edition of Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which I got because everybody has been recommending this duology to me, so I have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. But this edition actually has black sprayed edges on all of the ends, so I really love that. And I can't wait to dive into this duology. I have read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but I have not read these two books. I read those 3 books first to try to give myself a little bit of insight into this world, and I know that a lot of people recommend reading those before reading the Six of Crows, but now that I've read those, I do want to dive into these soon. And here I have Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo as well, which is the second book in the duology. After that, I have a copy of Babel, An Arcane History by R.F. Kuang. I've heard really good things about their writing, and I want to get into it. And when I saw that this was a Book of the Month pick, I had to absolutely get it. The next book I have is Air by Saba Tahir, and this is a recent addition to my collection. This is the Barnes & Noble special edition. I did remove the sticker because I didn't like how it looked there, but it's gone. I did it very carefully, so I didn't remove any other part of the cover, but it does have a special interview with Saba about this book. And I can't wait to read this book. I know there's another book that's coming after, but this is a new release that I just got. And I can't wait to dive into this and the Ember and the Ashes trilogy by the same author. I've heard nothing but amazing things about An Ember and the Ashes, and I can't wait to read this book as well. Then I have this edition of Crave by Tracy Wolff, and it has a little bit of some residue there from a sticker that I took off, but I can't wait to try this out. I know it's got some vampires in it, and I have been wanting to read more vampire books recently, so I can't wait to try it out. Next book I have is The Threat Below by J.S. Latshaw. This is the first book in the Brathias Legacy series. And the next book I have is A Gallery of Mothers, which is also by J.S. Latshaw. And this is the second book in the Brathias Legacy series. I believe both of these are indie published. Next, I have a finished copy of The Temperature of Me and You by Brian Sepka. And then I have this advanced reader's copy of The Summoning by J.P. Smith. This is another thriller book, so more of that genre that I want to get more into. Then I have a copy of Mirror Girls, another advanced reader copy by Kelly McWilliams. And I can't wait to dive into this. It sounds super interesting. Then I have a copy of Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I can't wait to try out some of her books. I've heard nothing but amazing things about her writing, so I can't wait to dive into this. Next, I have a copy of Three Girls from Bronzeville, a uniquely American story of race, fate, and sisterhood by Dawn Turner. Next, I have a copy of On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, and I have read The Hate You Give by the same author. I absolutely love the story. It was super poignant, super important, especially right now. It's always important, but I think it's especially relevant currently, and I can't wait to read more books by this author. And then I have a copy of Ground Zero by Alan Gratz, and this is a story about 9/11, about a boy who witnesses the events and kind of the aftermath of the Twin Towers crashing in New York. I think this is always important to read about. It was a pivotal moment in my generation's history, at least in the United States, and 9/11 is something that has shaped a lot of things about Gen Z, about what the world looks like now, and security, and all the things that we have. So I think this is an important story to read. And I was not alive during 9/11, so I have only experienced it through videos and things seen in class on the anniversary, but it is an important story to keep alive for all those people that did die during that day. And the last book on this shelf is a mass market paperback edition of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. She is the queen of mystery, like this book says, and I've been wanting to read a lot of her works for a while, so I can't wait to dive into this. Alright, so moving on up to my blues and purple shelves. Here we get a lot more color going on in the bookcase, and I think this is the shelf that most often features behind me in my videos. So this is what the shelf looks like. So the first book I have is The Roxy Letters by Mary Pauline Lowry, and I actually won this in a giveaway a few years ago on Instagram. Then I have a special edition collection, a copy of The Selection by Kira Cass. This is the first book in the Selection trilogy by the same author, and these are from Beacon Book Box, who is no longer selling books through their boxes anymore, unfortunately, but it is a special edition and it is signed by the author. So all 3 of the books that I have by her are signed, and I got this because I absolutely loved this trilogy when I read it, and I'm super glad to have this special edition. So the next book I have is a copy of Feral Creatures by Kira Jane Buxton. Then I have the collector's first edition of Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. I absolutely love this world, like I said before, and I think this is one of my favorite trilogies in the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I was a little disappointed by the last book, but I really did like this book a lot. And then I have an advanced reader copy of It Takes Two to Mango by Carrie Doyle. And I have another arc. This is Debating Darcy by Sayantani Dasgupta. And this is a Pride and Prejudice retelling, so that makes me super excited to get into this. And then I have Shadow Hill by Thomas Keyes. This is another thriller mystery book, and it does have these blue sprayed edges that I did do to the book itself, and I think these turned out better than the other sprayed edges. Another book that I've recently added to my collection is Husbands and Lovers by Beatrice Williams, and I can't wait to dive into this. I've heard some mixed things about it, but I'm still interested to give it a go, and it is from Book of the Month. And here we have my hardcover edition of Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone by Diana Gabaldon. It is the 9th book in the Outlander series, and it is the book that I will be picking up next after I finish Written in My Own Heart's Blood. I hope to read this in March, but we'll see if that actually goes to plan, and then I will be all caught up with the series. She's currently working on the 10th book in the series, and that's her last planned book for it, but I know there are some other books in the series that are not full-length novels, that are novellas, that are short stories and things in this universe, and there are the Lord John novels as well, which I'm interested in trying out, but I probably won't read those in 2025. Next, I have The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, and this is book 2 in the Mistborn trilogy. This is also the mass market paperback edition of it, and I can't wait to dive into this trilogy. I have had a lot of people recommending this trilogy to me and Brandon Sanderson's new works, and I can't wait to dive into some of his books. The next book I have is Legendborn by Tracy Dion, and this is also a Book of the Month book. I've heard nothing but good things about her writing and this series, and I can't wait to give it a go. And I have Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim, and it is the first book in the Blood of Stars series. And I think I got this because I've heard it's a little bit of like a Cinderella retelling, but with some like Asian culture things in it, so I'm interested in that. And I think it was also on sale when I got it, so it was the perfect time for me to pick up the book. And then I have Haven Point by Virginia Hume. I have this Christmas mystery, Murder Most Festive by Ada Moncrief, and hopefully I will read this around Christmas time this year. Then I have Power of Eternity, Druid Duo Book 1 by Carly Spade. So I'd like to get the second one if I enjoy the first one, but I have not yet given it a go yet. It is another Supernatural Book Crate book that I got when I was a rep for them, so I am still interested in trying this out because I've not gotten to it yet. Then I have Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This is another book that I really want to try and I think would be definitely up my alley. It is a little bit historical fiction-y and I can't wait to give it a try. And then I have a copy of The Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. This is the first book in the Eldest Curses series. There are supposed to be 3 books and 2 of them are currently out, but I don't know what her plans are for getting the 3rd book out. The next book I have is Tiger Honor by Yoon-Ha Lee, and this is a Rick Riordan book that is presented by him. I don't know what that means exactly, but it's, I think, like related to his press or something like that. But I am interested in the story, and I have not tried this yet. And then I have this copy of The Disasters by PC Cast and Kristen Cast. I've had this on my TBR for so long, and it does have these black sprayed edges, and I just have not been able to read it yet, and I don't want to part with it because it does look really interesting, and I love the holographic cover. And then I have Babylonia by Costanza Casati. This is another Book of the Month book, which I recently hauled. And then I have a copy of Divergent by Veronica Roth. And honestly, I've tried reading this book like multiple times. I don't know if I will ever read this. I did watch the movies and I heard that the last books just went super downhill. I do want to give this maybe another go, but I might be unhauling this soon. Then I have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and I have not read this book, and I can't believe I haven't read this book yet because I've been trying to read it since 2020, but it is about 2 Black women who lead very different lives in adulthood because they are sisters, but one of them passes as white and one of them lives as a Black woman and is perceived that way by society. Then I have this copy of Redemptor by Jordan Fueco, and I have not read the first book, Raybearer, but I do want to read it and then get to this book. Next, I have Hunted by Erica Woods. This is the first book in the Feral Souls trilogy, and this is an indie published book that was featured in the Supernatural book crate. And I have not given this a go yet, simply because of its length. It is just an extremely long book, so I don't know when I will get to it, especially because I've kind of burnt myself out from long books recently, but maybe I'll give it a go this year. The next book I have is The Last Gate of the Emperor by Kwame Mbalia and Prince Joel Makonnen. I hope I said those names right. I feel like I butchered them. But this is like a fun African futuristic sci-fi fantasy book, and I can't wait to try it. Then I have Misfit in Love by S.K. Ali, and this is book 2 in the Saints and Misfits series. Next, I have a copy of Fairest by Gail Carson Levine. This is in the Ella Enchanted World, and I recently got this in a little free library haul. And I had swapped out some books, so I put in some books that I had either read a long time ago and didn't want, or had extra copies of. And I'm excited to get into this. I don't know how I'll feel about it, but I do want to give it a chance. It is like a Snow White retelling, I think, so hopefully I will like this. Next on the shelf, I have Just Work by Kim Scott, and this is called Just Work, Get Shit Done Fast and Fair. It is like a little bit of a self-help book, and I have not read it yet, but I do plan on reading it because I want to get more into nonfiction. And finally, on my purple and blue shelf, we have a copy of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and this is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. So the next bookshelf that I have on my main bookcase is Pinks, Greens, and Blues. So I'm going to go from left to right, from pinks to greens on this shelf, and then blues. So the first book I have on the shelf is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. Next book I have is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, and this is a book that I also recently got in Book of the Month. Then I have a copy of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, The Room on Rue Amelie by Kristen Harmel, Astrid Sees All by Natalie Standiford, Demon King by Elizabeth Briggs, Little Thieves by Margaret Owen, The Last House on Needless Street by Katrina Ward, Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, By Way of Sorrow by Robin Geigel, The Anatomy of Desire by L.R. Dorn, A Surprise for Christmas and Other Seasonal Mysteries, edited by Martin Edwards, and this is a British Library crime classics, and actually I don't think this quite fits on the shelf, so I'm going to move this to my classic shelf. Then I have Vladimir by Julia May Jonas, The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, this is the mass market paperback edition, The Tree Line, The Last Forest, and The Future of Life on Earth by Ben Rollins, A World of Curiosities by Louise Penny, and this I recently got from a literal free library in exchange for another book that I put in there. Real Americans by Rachel Kong, Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Last Hours trilogy, and this is the collector's first edition. I absolutely love this book. I love this as a setup for the trilogy, and I am obsessed with the Shadowhunter Chronicles world. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I actually have this on my TBR and I want to read it super soon. I've heard many good things about this book and I can't wait to dive in. Vera by Carol Edgarian, The Way Spring Arrives and Other Stories from a visionary team of female and non-binary creators. So I can't wait to dive into this one and see what they've written about. Into the Forest, A Holocaust Story of Survival, Triumph, and Love by Rebecca Frankel. Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. Farewell Blues by Maggie Robinson. Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and this is one of the books that I've had in my collection for the longest amount of time. Some Boys by Patty Blount. A Passage North by Anouk Aruparasam. Prom Theory by Anne Labar, The Essential Diversity Mindset by Subong Peer, How to Cultivate a More Inclusive Culture and Environment, Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, and finally for this shelf we have The Grand Tour, Travels with My Elders by Ben Aiken. Then from this shelf we have, in no particular order, Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift, The House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer, The Land of Stories, A Grim Warning by Chris Colfer, The Women by Kristen Hanna, Chasing the Lion by AJ Tata, Red Trader by Owen Matthews, Not My Problem by Kiara Smith, Horse Girls, Recovering, Aspiring, and Devoted Writers Redefine the Iconic Bond, edited by Halima Marcus. Black Girls Must Be Magic by Jane Allen. Cold Hearted by Serena Valentino. You can't really see the title there, but there we go. Keeping It Real by Paula Chase. Fanfiction by Brent Spinner. Footnotes by Cassine Gaines. It's about the black artist who rewrote the rules of the Great White Way. Iron Widow by Siren J. Chow. Felix Ever After by Kason Calendar. The Elite by Kiera Cass. This is the second book in the Selection trilogy, and this is another from the Beacon Book Box special editions of the Selection, and this is also signed. Then I have a copy of Sigh by Neil Shusterman, The Bones of Ruin by Sarah Raleigh, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. This is the last book in the Last Hours trilogy. I found this one up to be a little bit disappointing, but I do have the collector's first edition. Then I have Lightning Down by Tom Clavin, Shoulder Season by Christina Clancy, The Haunting of Maddie Clare by Simone St. James, The Atmospherians by Alex McElroy, Quitting, A Life Strategy, The Myth of Perseverance and How the Science of Giving Up Can Set You Free by Julia Keller, PhD. Growing Up in the 1850s, The Journal of Agnes Lee, edited and a foreword by Mary Custis Lee DeButts. Explorations in Diversity, 3rd edition, examining the complexities of privilege, discrimination, and oppression. And I believe that I got this for a class. Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. And finally, we have Loveless by Alice Oseman. I've been absolutely loving watching the series of hers, Heartstopper, on Netflix, and I've read the first graphic novel of that, so I can't wait to dive into some of her other books. Alright, and the final shelf I have is just my white books all the way at the top and some book sleeves at the end there. So I'll go through one by one, but there's not too many titles up here. And then I have my other 3-case bookcase and my to-be-read soon books in the other room. So the first book on the shelf is The Ride of Her Life, The True Story of a Woman, Her Horse, and Their Last Chance Journey Across America by Elizabeth Letts. Then I have Ethel Rosenberg, An American Tragedy by Anne Seba. And then I have Courtiers by Valentine Lowe. This is an intrigue, ambition, and the power players behind the House of Windsor. Then I have Digital Body Language, How to Build Trust and Connection No Matter the Distance by Erica Dawan. Then I have The Nine, The True Story of a Band of Women Who Survived the Worst of Nazi Germany by Gwen Strauss. Next I have Unstoppable, a story of the Auschwitz survivor and penniless immigrant to Wall Street legend by Joshua M. Green. Then I have It's a Wonderful Woof by Spencer Quinn, A Dog's Courage by W. Bruce Cameron, Love People Use Things by Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, Full Flight by Ashley Schumacher, Sweet Bliss by Jennifer Bardsley, I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson, Good Boy, My Life in 7 Dogs by Jennifer Finney Bolane, and finally, The One by Kira Cass. This is book 3 of the selection series. This is also from the Beacon Book Box special editions, and it is also signed by the author. Alright, so the other main bookcase I have is this one, and this has 3 shelves on it. This is a bookshelf I first got before I got the other 6-shelf bookshelf, and I'll go through each of the shelves here as well. So starting on this bottom shelf, this is just a mix of a bunch of different titles, and I have just a lot of kids books that I read here, but we have first Reach for the Sky by Sky Jackson, which I finished in January. Then we have The Curie Society by Heather Einhorn, Adam Staffaroni, Janet Harvey, and Sonia Liao, which I also read in January. Then we have Thank You for Arguing by Jay Heinrichs. I got this for school a number of years ago, and I just have this copy right here. Then I have Muted by Tammy Charles. I absolutely love this book, and I've done a few kinds of things with it on my Instagram, but I really love this. It is written in verse, so it's written all in poetry style, and I absolutely recommend it. Then I have The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. I absolutely love this book when I read it, and I highly recommend it. Then I have In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez. This is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. I absolutely love this book. It is about these women in the Dominican Republic and kind of their experiences there when the government becomes a dictatorship and how they try to fight that. Next, I have my collection of American Girl books. First, I have Meet Julie. Then I have Krissa by Mary Casanova. Next, I have Aloha Kanani by Lisa Yee. Then I have Meet Marie Grace, Meet Cecile, Marie Grace and the Orphans, Troubles for Cecile, Meet Josefina, and Addie Learns a Lesson. Then I have my collection of Dork Diaries books. These are all books from my childhood, so I'll go through each of them very quickly. First, I have Dork Diaries Tales from a Not So Fabulous Life. Then I have Tales from a Not So Popular Party Girl. Then I have Tales from a Not So Smart Miss Know-It-All, Tales from a Not So Graceful Ice Princess, Tales from a Not So Talented Pop Star, Tales from a Not So Happily Ever After, Tales from a Not So Glam TV Star. Then I have Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, Something to Talk About by Meryl Wilsner, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and this is a new edition from Book of the Month, Romeo and Julio by Sharon M. Draper, If I Should Die Before I Wake by Han Nolan, The Impending Crisis, 1848 to 1861 by David M. Potter, Animal Farm by George Orwell. I absolutely love this book and I recommend it to everyone. It's Not All Downhill From Here by Terry McMillan. Yes, the cover of this is missing. Yes, I had a dog get to this, but I still want to read it. It's unfortunate that this is what happened to this copy, but 101 Things Everyone Should Know About Economics by Peter Sander, MBA. The Natural Mind, A Revolutionary Approach to the Drug Problem by Andrew Weil, MD. After Francesco by Brian Malloy. And finally, Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukovka. This is the middle shelf on these 3 shelves. So starting on the left, another book that I recently acquired is Transcendent Kingdom by Yaji Yasi. And I have Sleep of Stars by Maurice Broaddus. Shadow Thief by Eva Chase, Flirting with Monsters, Book 1. Fallen by C.N. Crawford, this is Fallen Hades Castle, Book 1. The Swallowtail Legacy, Wreck at Ada's Reef by Michael D. Beale. The Book of Hope by Jane Goodall and Douglas Abrams, A Survival Guide for Trying Times. Long Division by Keith Lehman. Her Honor, My Life on the Bench, What Works, What's Broken, and How to Change It by Ladoris Hazard Cordell. The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. Crossing the River, 7 Stories That Saved My Life, a memoir by Carol Smith. Alpha's Blood, A Vampire Shifter Romance by Renee Rose and Lee Savino. Then I have this lovely stack up here. The first book I have is Bulletproof Damsel by Amelia Hutchins. Then I have Shifter Wars by Sally St. Clair. This is Supernatural Battle Werewolf Den series. Then I have This Dark Wolf by Everly Frost. This is the first book in the Soul Bitten Shifter series. Then I have Promise of Darkness by Beck McMaster. This is Dark Quark Rising Book 1. A Measure of Serenity by Brian Prosek. Unwind by Neil Schusterman. Murder of Crows, a Tig Torres mystery. This is a book by Kay Ancrum. Witchlings by Claribel A. Ortega. Reclaim the Stars, 12 Tales Across Realms and Space. Edited by Zurita Cordova with stories by Vita Ayala, David Bowles, J.C. Cervantes, Sarah Faring, Romina Garber, Isabel Ibanez, Anna Marie McLemore, Yamil Saeed Mendez, Nina Moreno, Circe Moskowitz, Maya Montaigne, Linda Raquel Nieves Perez, Daniel Jose Older, Claribel A. Ortega, Mark Oshiro, and Lillian Rivera. Storm of Chaos and Shadows by C.L. Breyer. The Bear House by Megan McIsaac. And finally, Feather and Flame by Livia Blackburn. This is a book in the Queen's Council series. Then I have Ties That Tether by Jane Igaro. The Resting Place by Camila Sten. Brothers on Three, A True Story of Family, Resistance, and Hope on a Reservation in Montana by Abe Streep. Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. The Silent Unseen by Amanda Macrina. An Autobiography of Skin by Lakeisha Carr. Bitch Hunt by Tatrice Harrison. Almost There and Almost Not by Linda Urban. The Viral Underclass by Stephen W. Thrasher. Earth Called by PC Cast. And finally, on this shelf I have Unmasked, My Life Solving America's Cold Cases by Paul Holes. This is the final shelf on this bookcase. This is the third shelf and the top shelf here. The first book that I have is one of the books that I have on top, and these are like some coffee table kind of books that I love to have in my own place one day on a coffee table. And the first book is In Focus Astrology, Your Personal Guide. And then I have Psychology 101, The Essential Guide to the Science of the Mind by Alan Porter. And I actually majored in psychology in undergrad, so I think that these books would be great to have on a coffee table. They're very simple ideas, but I think are very representative of me as a person. Now, the first actual novel on this shelf is Truth of the Divine by Lindsay Ellis. This is the book 2 of the Numena series. Then I have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is an arc. The Bone Code by Kathy Reichs. The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. Traitor by Amanda Macrina. You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen McManus. The World Turned Upside Down by Kay Ibura. Little Souls by Sandra Dallas. Wider Than the Sky by Karen Rothschild. Take Me Home Tonight by Morgan Matson. The Black Friend on Being a Better White Person by Frederick Joseph. Solimar, The Sword of the Monarchs by Pam Munoz Ryan. The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. The first book in the Bargainer series, Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. Shadowbound Souls by Stephen Audi. This is the Luminance Saga second book. The Lost Language by Claudia Mills. The Magical Imperfect by Chris Barron. The Angel Maker by Alex North. The Space Between the Stars. This is an indie book by Amy Pinard. Trillium Sisters, Fashionable Disaster by Laura Brown and Ellie Kramer. Dream Country by Aisha Brown. Ghost Ship, A Savage Crew, Unspeakable Horrors. Dead Silence, that's this book, and it is by S.A. Barnes. Kelsey Murphy and the Academy for the Umbrigal Arts by Erica Lewis. A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. In 5 Dimensions by Diane K. Salerni. It's the End of the World and I'm in My Bathing Suit by Justin A. Reynolds. In Light of Recent Events by Amy Klinger. A Fury by Alex Michaelides. And the last book on this shelf is Falling by T.J. Newman. All the books on this bookcase are just random ones that didn't really fit on my main shelf, so there's no kind of specific order or organization to it, but I just kind of shelved them here because I didn't know where else to put them. Next and finally, I have these 3 stacks of books in my nightstand. These are on my to be read list, but they are ones that I want to get to sooner rather than later. The first book I have is Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. Then I have The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. Anne of Manhattan by Brina Starler. Saints and Misfits by S.K. Ali. Like Happiness by Ursula Villarreal Moura. Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. This was on my January TBR and it's also on my February TBR, but at the rate that we're going, it's probably not going to be read in February either, unfortunately, but I would like to get to it rather soon if I can. 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. And last for the stack is The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris. Then in the next stack, I have The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. In Every Generation by Kendara Blake. American Royals by Catherine McGee. These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. The True Love Experiment, which is the sequel to The Soulmate Equation, which I really loved, by Christina Lauren. And finally, for this stack, we have Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. Then for this last stack, and this is the last of my books, I think. I actually have one more to show that I am actually currently reading, and I'll show you that at the end. But this is Wahala by Nikki May. Then I have Crashing in Love by Jennifer Richard Jacobson. Wolves Queen by Jen L. Gray, and this is the first book in the Royal Heir trilogy. And finally, Ruined Song by Julia Ember. The last book I have to talk about is Written in My Own Heart's Blood by Diana Gabaldon, and this is how far I am into the book, so I'm almost done with it. And then after I finish it, I will put it back on that shelf that I showed you at the very beginning in the first bookcase. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Do any of those things, and I would really appreciate it if you do. If you like this video, just let me know in the comments. And if there's any of these books that you have that you want to read, let me know as well. I'd absolutely love to chat more about this in the comments below. But these are some of the books that I have. I did some reorganizing with this bookcase right behind me because there was a lot of weight on it, so I wanted to redistribute some of my books. And I will be unhauling some of the books that were on this bookshelf tour soon, but I wanted to see them before I got rid of the books. But I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope wherever you are in the world, you are doing well, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. And I will see you all for the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!